Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. My name is Ace and I've got some more TF2 gameplay here for you. Doing some intelligence, or otherwise known as capture the flag. And I'm playing as a Pyro. And I'm not specifically following the, the objective, if you can call it that. Because I sincerely dislike intelligence and I always end up just roaming around, and that's what I'm doing right now because I am playing a Pyro and I do not find the Pyro being the best class to capture the intelligence and bring it back. But I believe I do it once in these two matches that I have on this video here for you. On the other hand, I'm also using a different weapon, but before we go into that, I just like to point a few things out. YouTube's still broken. I can't reply to anyone. Some of you have experienced this issue yourself as well. And I've tried changing browser from Chrome to Firefox, and this did not fix it. I have the same bug on Firefox as well, so I'm assuming that the problem lays with YouTube itself. And they are aware of it, as far as I am aware. But if they already have a fix or anything, that eludes me. So I'm not sure when it's going to be, fixed, I suppose. And when I can finally start replying, because there are so many replies that I've been willing to reply to, in which I also had the time to reply. But I can't because they won't let me reply, which is frustrating. Also, I've been uploading quite a bit of content yesterday and the day before that, so you may have missed a few videos, like for example my latest, or at least my previous TF2 video, which was a K-Bird demo man. I'll put a link in the description box below, otherwise you can go to the end of this video because I tweaked the ending a bit, my outro. And you can also hit the annotation right there on the TF2 icon. And on top of that also you can just hit the Guild Wars 2 icon if you like that for the Guild Wars 2 content I've been releasing. Or hit the Orcs Must Die icon for of course my newest series. But beyond that, let's talk a little bit about the roaming Pyro. And like I was already saying, the reason why I play a roaming Pyro on this map is because I don't find myself to be a good choice to pick up the intelligence and run away. I find myself to be a more acceptable choice to be roaming around and try to prevent either incoming players or players that are trying to intercept, like the scouts that are of course capping the intelligence and such, because the buildings are relatively close quarter combat, and of course the Pyro is all about the close quarter combat. I also kind of figured to use not the flare gun but the reserve shooter, and a lot of you guys like this weapon, and I used to love this weapon, but I got so used to using the flare gun that I find myself to be naked without it. Do you know how that feels? Well, that's how I feel when I play the Pyro with the reserve shooter. And it's a good weapon if you can use it right, especially with the Pyro. It can be very powerful because you can air blast people up, and then you can do the mini crit damage with the reserve shooter. And that is glorious, of course. The only problem that I have with it is that I'm so used to the flare gun that I don't seem to be able to fight properly anymore, because I don't have that mid-range or even long-range harassment that I normally would have. Not that that is very effective on this map anyway, especially when I'm playing as a roaming Pyro, staying around the close quarters. But for example, in rooms like this, having a flare gun to try and harass the people on the high ground would have been a very glorious thing, and I just capped the intelligence right there. That's, I believe, the only cap I make in the two matches that I have here. And I kind of figured I would go back and get that spy, because spies are never nice. I think that spy was actually trying to headshot people on my team that are defending with this ambassador, and I'm not sure if he was very effective because I wasn't really paying attention to the kill feed. But nonetheless, spies are very annoying, and I have a very tasty flamethrower that is very good friends with any spy in my base that wants to die. Or at least doesn't want to live, apparently. But yeah, once again, the reserve shooter, very nice weapon. Still, that's the spy, by the way. How you doing? Fail miserably with my axe, but those things happen. Anyway, the reserve shooter is very nice to play around with, but it's usually banned in competitive play. I have stated this in my loadout video when I covered the competitive loadout for a Pyro, because it glitches out when it comes down to letting the gun know if your enemy is currently in air or not, and that's unfortunate. Because it is a very interesting weapon, especially if you combine it with the Pyro. It was originally meant to be only for the soldier, like you shoot a rocket to somebody's feet, they fly up, and then you mini crit them with your shotgun. But with the Pyro it's even easier, of course, because of the air blast. But unfortunately, this kind of bugs out most of the time, especially around stairs and such, because the game will think that you are basically, or at least that the enemy is basically in air, which means you can always get those mini crits even if they are literally walking on the stairs or even on the ground sometimes after an air blast when that bugs out. And it is truly unfortunate, but it is also a weapon that is not as reliable. Not because it does basically the mini crits whenever, because it all bugs out all the way, but you only have 3 shots. And you really have to get fairly close to it to make it actually worth your time. Because if you hit a flare gun, and I do think that I'm at least a decent flare gun shooter, or I can land my hits with the flare gun quite easily, I find, especially when I got so used to it. And a crit does 90 damage. And I do find myself finding, but basically doing a lot less damage most of the time with the reserve shooter, because either I don't land my hits correctly, or they just don't, all the bullets don't seem to hit properly, so it's only partially mini crit damage. And if you are really close to it, like for example right this, it would have been perfect to use the reserve shooter, but if I actually did not fail my air blast there, I would have been able to air blast this, the sniper a little bit closer or a little bit earlier against the wall and use my axe, and then I wouldn't even need the reserve shooter to be able to get that kill, because an axe hit when a target is on fire is of course a lot more effective than whatever the reserve shooter can pull out. Nonetheless, the reserve shooter does allow for some very interesting kills. Especially against scouts, it can be very frustrating, because scouts always seem to jump, which means the moment you see a scout, you don't even have to hit it. You have to, like I was saying, you don't have to air blast them. My English just completely evaporated or just vaporized my brain, but you basically can just annoy scouts so much with it, because scouts don't have a lot of health, as you know, and being able to do mini crits most of the time, because most scouts are jumping most of the time, you can practically just annoy the living hell out of them, which they don't find to be very fun, to say the least. Like, I'm trying to do it right here. Unfortunately, I fail horribly because I can't land the hits. Once again, I'm used to having a projectile on my secondary, so instead of a hit scan. So it's a bit weird, but once again, you can definitely have some very fun times with it, especially against scouts or just using your air blast reserve shooter combo. Also, your weapon switch is a bit faster back to your degreaser, for example, if you do use the degreaser as your primary, because the reserve shooter also has increased weapon switch, which is very nice. Do get a kill right here on, of course, the spy with my reserve shooter, and not the way that it is meant to be used, but nonetheless a kill's a kill, because otherwise I would have used the flare gun right there. But let me know what you guys think about the reserve shooter, and make sure to check out my different content videos that I've been putting out. Make sure to subscribe also for more content in the future, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.